This is a proud presentation of Southeast Missouri's ESPN Radio Sports Network. It's time for the Red Hawks Coaches Show, live from Wings, etc. Hear the Coaches Show every Monday at noon on SEMO ESPN 1220 and at 93.5 FM. Also at SEMOESPN.com and the SEMO ESPN app. Plus also watch the Red Hawks Coaches Show webcast live at SEMOESPN.com. Now,
somebody go live.
Let's go live to Wings, etc. for the Red Hawks Coaches Show.
Welcome in another edition of the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings, etc. In Cape Girardeau. We'll be talking Red Hawks basketball with head coach Brad Korn. Assistant coach Dustin Yoder is going to join us as well. You want to hear a story of a guy who started out as a student manager and has worked his way all the way up to the Division I ranks being an assistant coach? That's Dustin Yoder's story. We'll find out more about that as we go along. We want to invite you to join us here at Wings, etc. We'll be here in Cape this week over in the Jackson location, Titletown, on next Monday. And speaking of Mondays, on Mondays, they've got their award-winning jumbo wings for just 69 cents. That is the Monday special, 69 cents. If you're coming for lunch, check out their daily half-pound lunch specials. They start at just $7.99. And their menu includes a lot more than just wings. They have freshly made burgers, wraps, subs, quesadillas, entree salads, smoked ribs, and much more. It is Wings, etc., home of the Red Hawks Coaches Show. Good food, great time, Wings, etc. Let's talk some hoops with Coach Brad Korn. You've got to be excited about the way your team is playing. They've won 4 of their last 5. You went on this last road trip to Eastern Illinois and SIU Edwardsville knowing you needed likely a win to clinch a spot in the tournament. You didn't just get one win, you got 2 wins, so you are the number 7 seed. That has to feel good for everybody involved in the program.
Yeah, it does. You know, we've talked about it before. After we beat Eastern, I got asked if we were going to celebrate if that just wasn't good enough, you know, and so, yeah, we're absolutely going to celebrate that and be proud of that achievement. When you look at it on the surface, you know, at the beginning of the year, you're picked 12th. You're taking over 6 new guys that you didn't really meet face-to-face until September, and everything else that's gone on this whole kind of crazy year. I'm very proud of it, very proud of the guys. All those words I've used all season long, the grit, the perseverance, the tenacity, the toughness, the bounce back, all those words, the resiliency, that was on full display. And then to go on the road this weekend and, you know, as you said, not just win 1 game, but to win 2 in the manner in which we won them. We're playing really good basketball right now, besides the one outlier performance with EKU on that back-to-back. But I couldn't be more proud of the guys in the way that they've stuck to it and gotten us to this point.
94 points on the road Thursday to beat Eastern Illinois, 94-88. And this was a full-strength Eastern Illinois team. You played them earlier this season at the Show Me Center, and you routed them. And their numbers were down because of COVID and injuries. They are healthy. You faced them at the top of their game because they had just went on the road and beat Murray State and Austin Peay. Yeah. And then you come into their place and you beat them.
Yeah, it was. We knew that was going to be a tough game. Obviously, with the way that we performed the first time against them, and they didn't have half their team. So you've got that factor, and then you've got the way that they were playing at that time. And anytime you go on that road swing and get 2 wins, you know, you're playing some good basketball. And then a little third prong to that is they were fighting for the same thing we were. You know, if they would have won both games at home, they would have got in. So it was a highly competitive, it was a great basketball game, a really good high-level game with a bunch of points. I think they shot something like 50-some%. There wasn't much defense being played. But fortunately, Eric Reid had a huge game. We played good basketball. Again, I believe we had 3 guys with 6+ assists again, and we took care of the basketball for the most part. And that's just, we're coming together at the right time with all those factors. You know, early in the year we were a good rebounding team. We were a good 3-point shooting team. We hit a little bit of a lull. Now we're starting to do a little bit better job of taking care of the basketball, getting good shots. And then actually an SIU Edwardsville game, that's what cost us, and that's why we're up 16, and then they made a good little run at us and come back and tie the game actually. And so if we can take care of the basketball, get good shots, good high percentage shots, I think we can be a tough out in the conference tournament.
7 for 9 from 3-point range for Eric Reid against Eastern Illinois. I mean, guys don't go 7 for 9 from 3-point range. I mean, sometimes guys shooting in an empty gym may not make 7 out of 9 3-point shots.
Yeah, and that's why it was so surprising in the Edwardsville game. You know, I was watching it back again, and he had great shots, great opportunities. He just missed them in the Edwardsville game. And maybe he used them all up in the Eastern game. But Edwardsville, I didn't call timeout. They were making their run, and I kept thinking about it. But then we'd come down, have a good possession, and Eric Reid's wide open for three. And it's like one of them went halfway down, and next time down we come down, he had another great look. And it's just they just weren't dropping it. It's like every time you felt one was going to go in, we'll be okay. We survived it. We'll get back to a 12-point. We'll get back to a 15-point game. And it just didn't happen that way. But he had great looks. And if he shoots the basketball like that, which he has done pretty consistently here of late, again, that makes us that much more dangerous.
So he finishes with 10 field goals. I mean, Eric Reid's game is not just one of those guys that hangs out on the arc. There are lots of those guys in college basketball where they can't create their own shot for the most part. They rely on the drive and the kick out, but they're just guys that hang around the arc. You look at the number of percentage field goals that are made for certain guys, it could be in the high 80s or 90s. They're all three-point shots. That's not Eric Reid.
Yeah, and he's done a great job of expanding his game. I know he's always been able to do that throughout his career, but then also when you get into college and become the top guy of a scouting report, you have to be able to evolve and grow your game, and he's done that. He has that ability. He's mixed it up, as you said. He can get in there with 2 feet in the paint. I really think he can even start using the shot fake even more, just because obviously that's going to be in the scouting report. Don't let the guy shoot. Don't let him shoot. So he's really done a nice job of understanding spacing, because if he's all the way flat in the corner, then that helps the other guys. It becomes now a 4-on-4 game, which obviously creates more space. And then if they help off him, just kick it to him, and it's a wide open shot. Because anytime he raises up to shoot, I think it's going in every single time.
So do I.
Yeah, so it's, it's understanding that, of putting himself in the right position so he can be ready to shoot, because he's not going to have much time from now until the end of his career. The book is out on him. Everyone knows what a good player he is, and so he's got to understand the other parts of the game that can help him get those extra couple seconds, which can be the difference for a shooter like him.
And for anybody that has watched Eric Reid over the course of the season, sees he's not just a one-trick pony, man. This guy really lays it on the line on the defensive end of the floor, Coach. He's bought in on defense, hasn't he?
He is. He's an extremely tough, competitive kid. I keep saying all the time that, if we held a practice at 3 a.m., he'd be the first one there, last one to leave type guy, and doesn't ask any questions. He's hyper-competitive, what you want. I think he is going through the league now. I'd be hard-pressed to say that there's another guy out there like him that's a better two-way player in the league. I really feel that strongly about his defense and his offensive ability. So I think that's something for him going forward, is to be, the little awards and all that stuff will come out here in the next couple of days or whatnot. But I think he has defensive player of the year type of capability on the wing position, which is saying a lot.
So when you are recruiting Eric Reid, were you surprised he was still around when you got the job and that he was available for you to bring to SEMO, or did you think he was going to be this good? Tell us about the recruitment of Eric Reid.
Yeah, so obviously we got the job late and couldn't go out and recruit. And, when we hired – Coach Yoder came on board, he said, hey, there's this kid in Louisiana, played at Howard Junior College. Their junior college coach, he's strict, old-school type of guy. And Eric Reid comes from a military family. And so it's like we're doing all of our background check, because we knew – starting out in the first year, we had to have the right type of guys, and he checked all those boxes, and then when we started talking, Coach Yoder and I, about him, and I vaguely remembered him from a junior college tournament that they host down in Dallas, a big jamboree, and I vaguely remembered him playing there, and I'm like, okay, and then you go back and watch some film, and it's like, this is, and then talking to him and his dad, and it's just like, man, this is the character, and everything else seems to check out, and he didn't have much going on, to be quite honest. He had a few things here and there. He was kind of waiting on another school. They took another kid out west, so it just worked for us. And we didn't meet him face to face until September when he moved in. So he's been a huge bright spot, obviously. And I say it all the time too. Like, Eric's one of those kids that's like, you just never want him to leave your program. And when he does, when his eligibility's up, we got to have another Eric Reid in the program. We just got to keep having Eric Reids because of everything that he does off the court, the way that he approaches the game on the court, and then obviously to have the skill and the ability that he does. It's a perfect match.
So with Eric Reid, were you surprised that he was still available? Were you surprised that programs missed on Eric Reid, that didn't think he was going to be this guy?
Yeah, I am, just because, again, he played in a good junior college league, and he had good numbers. He was very solid. I think it was like 15.55 or somewhere right in those ranges, and just the competitiveness of him that surprised me probably more than anything. And that's something that Coach Yoder was saying, because he had seen him a lot, just recruiting him and been to multiple jamborees and saw him throughout the year, and just said, hey, Coach, I don't know a lot, but I know that this kid is tough and he's competitive and he's got that dog in him. And so we knew that those were the type of mentality, type of kids that we wanted, and then obviously adding the character component into it. So I think maybe he got a little bit hit in that league because it's a powerhouse type of a junior college league. And the way that their coach runs their program and their system, there's not these big superstar type of guys because of the way that they play. So I think maybe he probably got just lost in the shuffle a little bit with that, but give credit where credit is due with Coach Yoder, identifying that, and then also for Eric having that desire and that passion and that, as we say, that dog, that determination to want to prove people wrong.
When you first join a program, it's kind of hard to immediately be a leader. You got to establish a little credibility within a program. Mm-hmm. Is Eric Reid one of those guys that is turning into a leader on this team? Is that his character?
It's developed over the course of time. As you mentioned, coming here new, you don't know, he didn't know half these guys either, any of them for that matter. So I think that as you get going and then he sees what he's doing in practice and he gets more and more comfortable and understanding the scouting reports a little bit more, and, we put him on the best player every single time, the best wing guy he always gets. So he's really got to know and understand scouting report and what we're doing and how we're guarding it. And I think the more that he's gotten that experience and all those reps, he's really taking on more of that. He's a little bit more vocal now because, again, he is hyper competitive. So when something doesn't go right or we don't get a defensive stop, he now knows exactly what went wrong or how we're supposed to fix it or correct it. And I think we're also getting that from Nano. We're getting that from Nolan. So I think everybody's kind of buying into more of that leadership role, which we needed from the very beginning of the year.
So with the Eastern Illinois game, what surprised you the most about the performance that you guys gave? Was it the fact that you put up 94 points?
Yeah, I think so. Just to be able to score the ball like that on the road and then they were scoring the ball. And so, again, if you would have said at the beginning of the game, hey, Eastern's going to shoot 50-some% with what we knew was on the line, I'd have been like, oh, boy, that's probably not going to end well for us. But it was a high-level game. We executed very, very well. We ran a couple things that we had never ran before out of timeouts for Eric to get him loose because he was hot. And he executed them. He had a huge three right in front of our bench out of a timeout, a play that we've never ran before. And so that type of focus, that type of execution was huge just because, again, it was coming down to the wire. And if we'd have made a couple more free throws, against Edwardsville, we probably stretched it out a little bit more even because I think we got up to even almost 10. And then Smith or Matt, one of the Eastern's kid, he hit back-to-back threes and cut it. So we played extremely well. I was surprised that really both teams, how well the offenses were running and gelling. And, I mean, it was a high-level game.
They had the official attendance listed at 29 in the game. I'm guessing it's your first trip to Lance Arena.
Yeah.
It's like a high school gym. I mean, it doesn't have no offense to them. And they've played there a long time. But, I mean, we've seen some of the facilities in our conference, and Austin Peay's opening a brand-new arena. But you feel like you're in a high school gym when you play games there, and the fact there were no fans.
Yeah, there was a couple up on the balcony there, and probably the worst part of the whole thing, Eric, was that they were pumping in the crowd noise music.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was awful. I mean, it was terrible. Actually, I think it was either Sam or Dustin were like, turn that off during the game because it just was annoying. I mean, for a lack of a better way to put it, it didn't sound like fan noise. And you got enough whistles and enough people talking and sneakers squeaking, and
right.
So it's like just we don't need that. Let's just play the game. So, but I think when you get going in the heat of the game, you don't even really, as a player, as a coach, you don't pay much attention to that if it was sold out or if it was two people in the gym. With everything that was on the line in that game and the level in which it was being played, kind of all that stuff just kind of falls to the side. Except for obviously there's runs and momentum, and if it was a sold-out deal or if there was a bunch of fans in there, obviously that changes things. But for that game, it was, you wouldn't have thought with 29 people there'd be that much scoring and that much intensity in the game. It was just a really good basketball game.
How about DQ Nicholas, 9 for 12 from the free throw line against Eastern?
He played well, and he's been playing well for us. By doing a bunch of other stuff. He's been a rebounder. I think he's 12th maybe in the conference in rebounding. I was looking at stats, not his top 10. So he's done a lot of little things, and I think over the course of these couple games he's had, over the last 4, he's had some games where he's had 6, 7 assists. So if he can do all those other things and then make free throws like he has been, I mean, that's huge for us. We need assists from the point guard spot, and now we got to get it to the point where it's every night or every game we can go, okay, DQ we know is going to get 6 assists, 2 turnovers, 7 assists, 1 turnover. And I think that's been a thing that he's defended his position very well. Even Austin P., the Paez had eight assists, but he had 8 turnovers. Marvin Johnson at Eastern Illinois, he had 6 or 7 assists, but he also had 6 or 7 turnovers. And so if we can do that, that's, DQ's up there full court guarding, working guys. So if he can do all those other things too, it just adds so much more to our team.
And depth at point guard has been tested. We're told that Jordan Love has an Achilles issue. We have not seen him in quite a while. Is there a Jordan Love update?
It's pretty much day to day. Probably when you miss this much time late, it's probably going to be hard to get back in there just with everything.
Sure.
And obviously he doesn't want to jeopardize anything health-wise until that actually feels right. It's kind of one of those, you talk about like the hamstrings, and it's hard to gauge those types of injuries. So potentially.
Is that as tricky an injury as there is? Because we've seen people, Kevin Durant, the Achilles just snaps and that's it, and no warning either.
Right. And I think that's probably a little bit more too. There's that added fear of that potentially happening. And so you got that, and then you've got Nolan, who's obviously battling his injuries, and it's just that time of year. And it basically is just a kind of a day-to-day situation.
So same thing with Nolan as to whether or not he'll be able to play in the tournament.
Yeah, he tries to get his body going every single day, and you just it gets to that point. It's like, well, you're going to jump today from 2 to 4 o'clock in practice, and something happened, or are you trying to save and work yourself and maybe potentially playing the game, but then you don't have any practice time before you get into the game, and so now you just go jump into a game. That's not the right thing either. So you're a little bit in the holding pattern and trying to figure out what's best for each individual guy. I think that they could both potentially be available, but I don't know that necessarily they would get a game because it's going to be probably a tight, close game.
So with Nolan Taylor unable to make it to the starting block in some of these games, it has given increased minutes to guys like Darius Agnew, Manny Patterson, Nate Johnson, and in the Eastern Illinois game, Darius Agnew is really coming on, Coach.
Yeah.
10 points, double-digit games in both of these games on the road trip. Back to the basket guy. He can be aggressive. We know he's a three-point specialist now, apparently. But Agnew really has started to come on. Is this the guy that you were kind of hoping to see when you first took over the program and watched his skill set and watched video of Darius Agnew?
Yeah, because he has great feet. Sometimes he gets a little bit stuck going the other way, but he has really good footwork, and he gets to his spot. His basketball IQ is very high. We do a lot of things with our bigs out a little bit with the ball in their hands, and he's skilled and he can do that. He actually moves very well east-west for a big guy. He likes to put it on the floor, and sometimes it gets going a little too fast going left, and he'll fall over from time to time, which we give him a hard time about. But again, he's been that he has come with a great attitude every single day in practice. We've talked about it before. He was in that injury at the beginning of the year, kind of that injury protocol, getting himself back right from his knee injury a year ago. And then he went through some other things and had a death in the family around the Belmont game, another game that he hit 3 in. And so then he missed a couple days with that, and then coming back to the team, missed a couple more just with COVID and everything else, just to make sure everything was fine with that. And so you're talking during the year, during a conference season, if you're missing 4 or 5 practices in a week, it's going to, it just sets you back. And so for him to just continually come back and continue to work, he keeps a great attitude. He stays after practice and shoots more. At the hotel at Edwardsville, he came in before our pregame meal, and he was in getting a little extra leg work that Coach Brew puts him through just to get, to continue to strengthen his knee. And so he's done a lot of things outside of just our practice time, which you have to do if you want to be a good player at this level. And I'm happy for him because he stuck with it. He kept a great attitude, and it's paying off for him, and it's paying off for our team because him and Nate, I believe it was, they went 20 and 8 combined, I think, in the Eastern Illinois game. So to be able to get 20 points, 8 rebounds out of your 5 spot is a huge, huge deal for us.
And when you play Morehead State, their guy is Janai Broom. And how are you going to match up with him? Now, it seemed like I remember the first time you guys played, he wasn't a major factor for a lot of the game because Nolan Taylor did a nice job defending him. Well, if Nolan's not going to be out there, what's the game plan to slow Broom down? And do you think these guys, Agnew and Patterson and Johnson, can slow him down? This is a good post player they have.
Yeah, it is, and he's done a phenomenal job. We got him in foul trouble at third place. I know he had 2. He might have had 3 fouls in the first half, and we were right there at third place, hung in there till the very last media timeout until they were able to stretch it out. But he's similar to Terry Taylor, just very unassuming. I don't want to use the word awkward, but he's not a big leaper. He doesn't get off the ground much. He's got great touch. And so unassuming, you don't think that he's doing a whole lot out there, and then all of a sudden you get the stat sheet and he's put up 14 and 7 and 14 and 8 for a true freshman at a 5 spot is very impressive. He leads the league in blocks. He's top 10 or top 5 in rebound, and I think he's 12th or 14th in scoring. So as a true freshman at the 5 spot is very impressive, and he's a hard matchup because he does have great length. Even though he's not a good jumper, he's 6'10". He's got very long arms. He's left-handed, and so it's, again, I keep using that word unassuming because you think that, oh, well, you just play regular post D and you'll be fine because he doesn't jump very high or all this and that. But he's a very, very effective player uses both shoulders, both hands. I think the biggest key with him is for our post players is if you don't play post defense before he gets to the paint area, you're at his mercy. And so you have to play ahead of the play, constantly always be finding and locating the ball because they do a nice job of getting him on overloads and they run a bunch of other actions for him to get the ball close to the bucket, obviously. So defending him, and the key to defending him is playing ahead of the play. And
it almost sounded like you were describing Nolan Taylor there. Nice post moves and can't jump.
Yeah, I wish he had a little more length so we could get some of those overload over the top passes that Terry Taylor gets from Austin Peay and then Janai Broom gets at Moorhead. But just like Nolan Taylor, once he gets it that close to the bucket, you really are at their mercy. And he's a good finisher and he's a good passer, much like Nolan is for us.
So after the great game against Eastern Illinois, Eric Reid, it was 7 for 9 from three-point range. He goes 1 for 8 from 3. And when you see something like that, sometimes you just say, that's basketball.
Yeah.
Keep shooting because shooters shoot.
Yeah. That's what I told him in one of the timeouts. There was about 6.5 minutes left, and it got tight. At that point, I believe maybe they tied it. And he was frustrated. He got fouled driving to the bucket. And then he goes to the foul line. It's like, you know what, if he makes just like anything, baseball analogies and all that. If you say, hey, you see one go in, and he made a free throw. He missed the first one, and then he made the second one. And it was either the next trip down or the second trip down after that. He hit a huge three, and so it was his 1-3. So that was what he needed to see one go in, and he hadn't seen one go in since that Eastern game or up to that point. So that was a huge free throw for him to get to the line. And again, as you were talking about earlier, he needs to be a 3-level scorer for us. He doesn't have to just be a 3-point specialist. He has the ability to get fouled, get to the foul line, especially if the outside shot isn't working. Get to the foul line, get a free, clean, easy look, and now you're gonna have more confidence when you go back out and shoot that three. So with about 6. I think it was like 6:33, 6:42 or whatever it was when the under 8 media timeout, and he was frustrated. I just looked and said, hey, Reid, you know what you got to do? And he said something else. I was like, no, you just got to play hard for the last 6.5 minutes. Don't worry about anything else. And so he's that kind of kid. He's so competitive and he gets so wound tight. If things aren't going well for him, he'll tense up even more and try to do everything right, and he'll sometimes overdo it. And so it's just like, hey, you just calm down, trust your abilities. We believe in you, and because we're obviously hard to beat if he is playing at the level that he can play at.
And Chris Harris played at a high level on Saturday, Coach. He finishes with 16 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists in the basketball game, played 34 minutes. And Chris Harris, boy, if you get a Chris Harris like that, you're tough to beat too.
Yeah, and he had a great game against Eastern Illinois as well. But I don't know what the assists were, but they were higher. There was more than just 2 or 3. I think he was a 6 or 7 assist guy in that game as well. So we've done a good job of putting the ball in his hands late and let him be also a decision maker late in games, because he does. He can see over the top. He puts passes right on time, right on target. When he plays that way and he's engaged that way, the way that he has been the last couple weeks, it just adds a whole nother element to our team, because it helps him on both sides. It helps him defensively. It helps him. One of the games I think he even had 6 rebounds, which we've kind of been on him about rebounding. With his ability and his size, he should be able to get some more rebounds. So he's had a nice 2 weeks. He's had a very, very nice finish. He's been very, very committed. He's been it's been nice to see him he's taken another step, and that's been really nice to see these last 2 weeks.
Boy, and then you look at what Nigel Russell was able to do against SIU Edwardsville. If I told you, okay, Nigel Russell went 0 for 2 from the field, boy, it really didn't help you very much in that game. Oh, no, wait. He had 8 made free throws. He finished with 9 rebounds and 5 assists in the basketball game. So Nigel Russell against SIUE is a lot more than just he went 0 for 2 from the floor.
Yeah. Actually, I think that was the Eastern game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Eastern. Yeah.
So we couldn't get him off the floor. He was playing that well, and he was playing that well defensively. He was really engaged and in gaps, and I don't know what his minutes were. I don't know what he played at, but I think it was close to almost, was it 25 or
24?
24 minutes. Which was a lot for him, coming into that game.
Sure.
But again, he was playing so well. He got to the foul line late, and he missed his first one. And I believe it was a tight game, and he was in that situation where it's like, man, if you miss two, this could be, things can go a different type of way. So he got fouled, and he made those two, and then he came back and made two more, basically closed the game. And that was huge for him because he had struggled from the foul line too. And but when he was bought into everything that we were doing, all the other things, the other stats that may not necessarily show up, because I think a lot of times people get caught up in the points and the scoring. But as you mentioned, the assists and the rebounds were huge. And again, he was very, very active and attentive and energetic on defense, which was huge. With his body and his athleticism, he can do that.
So after the win against Eastern Illinois, and you knew you had clinched a spot in the tournament, I'm sure your players knew that you had clinched a spot in the tournament. You worry at all about a letdown at SIU Edwardsville? I mean, because you technically had something to play for. You avoid playing Belmont in the first round. Instead, you play Morehead State, put a higher seed. Were you at all worried about maybe there was going to be a letdown because they know that they've made the tournament?
I don't know if letdown would be the word. It's more of like, okay, if things aren't going well, will we then just kind of be okay with where we were at? That crept in my head a little bit. But I tell you what, Eric, these guys, we talked about it on February 14th. That was our next practice. I forget who we played on the 13th or whatever it was, but it was at that point where we just said, hey, guys, we do not have to accept 8th place. We don't have to just kind of barely hang on and get in the conference tournament.
You played Austin Peay in Clarksville.
Okay. So after that, we didn't play particularly well. A couple guys didn't play. We were, banged up, just got beat by Murray. So at that time you're thinking, oh, this isn't looking very good. You're going to lose and not get in the tournament and blah, 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 blah. And so it was that very next practice that said, hey, we don't have to accept 8th place. At that time, we're still in position to maybe potentially finish 6th or even 5th if people lost. So it's like, hey, we're still moving this thing forward. We're still trying to go. And that, forget 8th. We don't have to be 8th. We don't have to settle for that. So that was that message from February 14th. And so now, the last game of the season, you got a chance to bring that to fruition and not finish 8th. So I think our guys were motivated. They had that mindset. They had that mentality to not finish 8th. That 8th wasn't going to be good enough for us. That we wanted more than just that. And so I think they took on that mentality, and it showed because we played great. We're up 16 with 14 minutes to go. They cut it. They tie it. And then again, we bounced back and we win that game, which earlier in the year we didn't win that game. So
sure.
Again, we had growth, and again, it's been our guys more their mindset of really believing of what they're trying to do, what we're trying to do, and not accepting just getting by.
And you're starting to see some of the buildings in the OVC. Like we mentioned, Lance Gymnasium at Eastern, and you saw the Vidal Bean Center. They've got a nice little facility there in Edwardsville, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, big campus. That's the first time, ironically, that I've ever been there to both those places. Being an Illinois guy my whole life, I've never been to those campuses.
So SIU Edwardsville, the game when they were making their comeback, what do you do as a coach when you see the comeback happening and you don't feel like, man, what do I as a coach do to slow it down? What are some of the things that are going through your mind?
Well, we had 3 timeouts. I didn't even use a timeout in the first half. So we had 3 timeouts in the second half at that time, and I was getting ready to call one just to break the momentum. But again, Eric Reid had 2 wide open shots. We had a layup opportunity. We just missed. And to their credit, SIUEs, they came down and executed, and they got the momentum back. But it was also over the course of 4 or 5 minutes. And so it wasn't like one of those fast, quick runs, and we were getting good shots. So it just was kind of a slow – they just methodically kind of got back into the game. You could feel it slipping a little bit. I thought about going zone at one point just to break up there because they were getting us in some ball screens, and we were struggling with that. So we mixed up ball screen coverages a little bit out of the timeout, and really just telling the guys. So I called one timeout and just kind of told them, like, hey, fellas, we're either going to win or we're not, and you have to make that decision. There's nothing on this board that I'm going to draw up that's going to make anything else happen. We just have to have that mentality that, all right, enough is enough, and we're going to win this basketball game. And when they were making their run, Eric, I went back, we had 3 turnovers, and then we took 5 threes. So we never got the ball inside. And that was 2 or 3 of them were really good shots that I'll take any time, but then there were also 2 really bad 3-point shots. One was a contested 3, and then we also shot 2 air balls from 3 in that stretch. So So instead of 2 turnovers, it really is 5 turnovers. And so when you're up 16, you turn the basketball over 5 straight possessions, and then the 2 other were empty threes. That's how a team makes a run. And so I think we were able to, once that point hit, it was 46-46 or whatever it was, we were able to recalibrate, and then finally finish it off the way that we should have. So it just was that stretch of just 7 poor possessions. I shouldn't say 7, 5 that really hurt us, because then they came down and we fouled, or they got an and one, which, obviously you're stopping the clock, and they had a 4-point play. They called a flagrant one on Nana when he's trying to block a shot, and he happened to hit a kid in the head. So he made the basket and got 2 free throws, and then we turned it over right after that. So you're talking about you're up 16, and then the team gets 7 points just in one fail swoop. Well, now 8 points now it's anything can happen. So I think that's kind of what happened in that stretch. But to our guys' credit, we didn't just give in. We just didn't accept 8th plays. We just didn't accept that they came back and made a run. We kind of bowed our back and dug our heels in and finished the game off.
And Nana Kenton has made a name for himself shooting the 3-point shot. He didn't make any threes at Edwardsville, but he finished with 11 points and 10 rebounds, 7 of 9 from the free throw line. So Nana wasn't just going to settle for, I'm just going to jack threes and that's going to be my contribution here tonight. Yeah. No, he found other ways to contribute.
Yeah, and he can do that with his athleticism. I mean, he can rebound the basketball for us. And as I mentioned earlier, he's top 10 in the league in rebounding. And, we always, as a staff, we're like, man, he doesn't ever rebound. We need him to rebound more and more. You always want more as a coach. And so he has that ability, the athletic ability to do that. He's another one of those guys, Eric, of late, that has really kind of taken on a brand new, I shouldn't say a brand new approach, but he's taken on the approach of, this is what we're doing. This is what our team's going to look like. This is how we're going to play. Here's what I'm going to do. And so I've been really encouraged by his attitude and his trying to be a leader, and then also just leading by example, not just words.
So do you know? Have you had any conversations with any of the players about maybe guys that are seniors? Are you coming back? Do you want to be back again next year? Is that something you talk about after the season?
Yeah, I haven't had any of them conversations with any of those guys. Because in theory, if you are here for the right reasons, you are coming back. And so I don't think that's we'll talk about it when, we'll have our end of season meetings like everybody does when the season ends. But right now our main focus is continue to play the best basketball that we have. And, we've got 3 games left to try to win a championship. And, it may sound crazy, but that's why we call it March Madness. And, I fully believe in these guys. I think they believe in what we're trying to do. And that's why you go and play the game. That's why you put yourself in a position to have that opportunity. So we're more focused on that than anything right now.
It was just a few years ago, and it may have been Dave Luce's next to last year, just a few years ago. They were the 8th seed in Nashville, and they won the tournament. They won the OVC tournament as the number 8 seed. They had to win 4 games in 4 days. It has been done.
Yeah, and this year's even a little bit more interesting just because of the format that they've done. So we'll play Wednesday night late, nothing on Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday. So they obviously set it up to give the 1 and the 2 seeds more rest or more time. And so obviously we go in and do what we can do. And, now that flips and we essentially become obviously the 2 seed, and we get that extra day off and get ready to play 2 games in 2 days after that. It's a good setup for us. I think our guys will be hungry and ready to go. And, again, it's win or go home time now, and it's March Madness, and that's what you want to do is be able to put yourself in position. It's March 1st today. This is what it's all about. And, again, credit to our guys for putting themselves in that position.
All right, Dustin Yoder, your assistant coach, is going to join us here after a timeout. Tell us about how you got to meet Dustin. I'm guessing it was at Kansas State. And
it was, yeah.
What put him on your radar, and tell us about the story about how he joined your staff.
Yeah, so he was, when I went to K-State after my time at SIU, Coach Weber hired him as a graduate assistant. He had spent time with Coach Weber at Illinois prior to K-State. He was a junior college assistant. He actually had an opportunity to go be a Division II assistant or come to K-State as a graduate assistant. He decided to come to K-State. So that was my first time meeting him. Even though he's from Central Illinois, I didn't know anything really about him. He played at Lakeland College, if I'm not mistaken. So he's kind of been a Central Illinois guy, and then got teamed up with him at K-State. And then I left after that first year, and then when I left, the video coordinator at the time took my position at K-State, and then he got moved up to video coordinator at K-State. He was still video coordinator when I went back to K-State, but then only for 1 year. And then after that year, he left. I went to a Division II school down in Texas, UTPB, Permian Basin, Division II school. And
when reading his bio today, it's the first time I've ever heard of that school.
Right. I remember seeing him on the road recruiting, and they just had the initials of UTPB and all these other. They were like, I think they're the Road Runners. So he's got all these syllables and letters on his shirt. I'm like, dude, what are you guys? But I've always respected him and given him credit because he went out and got that job on his own from K-State. You know, no one called in a favor for him. No one did it. Hey, you got to hire this guy. He did it on his own. And he left, quote unquote, the nest, and he wanted to coach. He wanted to be on the floor, and so I've always respected that because he's always had that that drive, that determination to want to get to this level, and so I've always respected that. So when he teamed up with him, and then that head coach then moved on to the California school. That's why he's coming from California. So I've just always respected that work ethic, and you know, he loves basketball. He brings good ideas. He challenges me. You know, we don't have yes men in the office, which is good, but there's also we don't ever get out of line. And I respect his work ethic. I respect what he does. I know he loves the game. He's passionate about it. So it's been I knew that I wanted that guy like that when we started out, when we got here.
So his time at Permian Basin, was that his end to the state of Texas to get in Eric Reid? Did he become familiar with that circuit there when he was down in Texas?
Yeah, that, and with his head coach, Andy, I think it's Andy. Was it Andy? Yeah, I think his name was Andy, if I'm not mistaken. That was kind of their deal. You know, they've targeted the junior college ranks, you know, the guys that fall out of D1 and can't go D1, whatever the qualifications are be. So and then being down in that, kind of that region, that area of, you know, a lot of people, because you got to fly in and then you got to take a 2-hour drive, and, you know, a lot of the lazy guys in the business won't do that.
Yeah.
And so he was able to kind of cut his teeth in that area, in that region, and that junior college conference, and you know, he's in all that, you know, and that's been you need that on your staff, and he does a great job with that stuff.
All right, we'll talk with Dustin Yoder when we come back. Quick timeout. Back to visit with Dustin Yoder, Red Hawks assistant coach. It's the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings Etc. on SEMO ESPN. Welcome back to the Red Hawks Coaches Show. We are at Wings Etc. in Cape. Don't forget, we'll be in the Jackson location, Titletown, next Monday at 12 noon. And we'll know how the Red Hawks did in the OVC tournament, the men and the women. Don't forget, the women will play on Thursday. I believe it's 3 o'clock for the women, and the men play at 9:30 on Wednesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, and hopefully everybody will be staying for the entire weekend. Let's welcome in Red Hawks assistant coach Dustin Yoder. And, boy, you've got a pretty cool story starting out as a student manager at the University of Illinois and working your way all the way up to being an assistant coach at Division I. That's quite a climb. It's not easy to do, is it?
No, not at all. It was, it was a challenge and a risk. I played 2 years of junior college at Lakeland College, and I knew right away leaving there I didn't want to mess around with any small ball college anymore, pursue basketball anymore. I wanted to get into coaching at the highest level, and I had a great head coach at Lakeland College who got me hooked up at Illinois, and we're here now. So
Lakeland College, now that is in Mattoon, and for those who know about Central Illinois, it's south of Champaign, but Mattoon and Charleston are kind of like Cape and Jackson. I mean, they're right next to each other. And, in fact, whenever we go play at Eastern Illinois for whatever sport, we usually stay in Mattoon because that's where the hotels are. There aren't really a whole lot of hotels in Charleston. Tell us about your time in the thriving metropolis of Mattoon.
Oh, man. It was a great time. 2 years of one of the best 2 years of my life. We had a decent team there, and I met a lot of great friends and had good coaches. It's the friends I made there are still the friends that I have today, and there may not have been a lot to do, but we found things to do and had a great time. So, and
for those who don't know, the very first Burger King restaurant is there, and it is still the old school. Nothing like the new Burger King, not the logo, nothing. And they make pretty good burgers.
They do. I was a frequent, every Tuesday, Thursday customer, to be honest with you. So burger, ice cream, eating that great college athlete diet that I did back then. I was in there all the time.
I think it's kind of weird. They've got two towns that close to each other. You got Mattoon and Charleston. The very first Burger King ever is in Mattoon. The very first Jimmy John's ever is in Charleston. I mean, those are two pretty big franchises.
College kid's dream, man. It was a college kid's dream.
So did you interact with the college life over at EIU when you were going to Lakeland?
I did, and I I grew up 20 minutes away from Charleston in that area, so I may have had to participate in that a little bit even before college.
Sure.
But it was nice being home, being back in the area. Out of that, you talked about 29 people being there at the game. 4 of them were my family members in Red Hawks shirts. So it was nice. I mean, to try and provide a little bit of an advantage for us. So, but it was great. I was just wondering, if I was going to run into anybody, just because I know so many people from back in that area. It was just a nice homecoming, and then to seal it with a win, that was even better.
Pretty cool to go back to your old stomping grounds. Does it make you appreciate the Show Me Center when you go and play in a place like Lance Arena?
Yeah, without a doubt. And honestly, just traveling, within the league in the OVC, we have one of the greatest. We have one of the best gyms in the league, arenas. And I can't wait to see that thing full, when we get out of this COVID stuff, hopefully in the near future, and really be the atmosphere that I think it's been hyped up to be, and that I think it's going to be. So looking forward to it.
Tell us about being at the University of Illinois, and were you there when Weber took them to the championship game?
Nope, I just missed that. But what I tried to do there was just star in my role. I was, you can't be worried about the next job. All you can do is be a star in the role that you have and get everything that you can give to the job you're in. And as a manager, I was cleaning, picking up guys' dirty laundry and doing laundry and getting to the floor early and sweeping up the floor and going to Chicago to pick up assistant coaches' grandmas that would fly in. It was, whatever the job was that day, that's what it was. And I just tried to star in my role and give everything I had to that program, even if it was, simple tasks that nobody really wanted to do. But that's just kind of the mentality that I took.
Well, you had to have done a good job because Weber remembered you and then hired you at Kansas State. What was that process like?
It was different. He had just helped me, honestly, land a Division II job, a couple of weeks before he asked me. And I remember in that Division II interview me saying, this is a job I would rather have over a high major assistant because blah, blah, blah. And I had to say those things. And then 2 weeks later, Coach Weber said, hey, actually, I've got a GA spot open up. What do you think about coming? So then I was, oh, man, Coach, you don't want to know what I just told this guy. So, but, Coach, working with Coach at Illinois, I was just so comfortable with him. And, he's all about the right things. And he cares for people. It was just, to get a chance to go work for him again, it was hard to pass up.
So working at Kansas State, now that's a different area, Manhattan, Kansas. There's not much around Manhattan.
No, there's not. But Eric, man, my hometown is 1,300 people. There hasn't been much around where I've lived much of my life. So I fit right in. Easily entertained. So, it makes basketball even more, if that's what there's to do in town, then that's what there's to do in town. So
now explain to people who have not been to a game at Kansas State, what is the deal with the students and the newspapers, and they pull the newspapers out, and then they throw cut-up newspaper. Explain exactly what happens at a basketball game with the student section.
So the student section is literally at half court, right, stretches all the way across from the visiting to the home bleachers, but a good portion of them is from the visiting section, and they all have the school newspaper that day, and when they're doing the starting lineup for the visiting team, they've got their papers up and shaking them like they're not paying attention, like they're not impressed, and then while they start doing our starting lineup, then they start ripping them up, and they throw we name a player out, and they throw the paper up in the air, and they continue to do it for every guy, and it's a big time college basketball atmosphere, especially when your guys are playing well and the team is playing well. It was one of the best in the Big 12, and definitely some memories I'll never forget. And that game against Kansas, you can't hear yourself thinking there. It gets so loud. It's just one of the coolest atmospheres and things that I've been a part of.
Well, the first time we played there, Frank Martin was a coach back then, and I saw the newspaper thing go off, and I was captivated by it because I'd never seen it on TV. I'd seen games in Manhattan, Kansas on ESPN, but to see it in person, that's kind of a cool little thing that is kind of just unique to K-State.
Yeah, it was a big time home court advantage. Those fans there, they've got a really passionate fan base, and it made it really tough to go in and win in Bramlage, and we took that to. We used that to our advantage in all the years that I was there. Even if we had a little bit of a down year, we still always won at home. Beat #1 team in the country there, and I think we were only like 14-17 that year. Those atmospheres can do, big things, especially in our sport. And you're dealing with kids 18 to 22. When you get a big, intimidating atmosphere, it can wear on some nerves. So hopefully we've got that coming to the Show Me Center soon.
Does the fan base at Kansas State hate the Kansas Jayhawks as much as they do at the University of Missouri?
that I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of experience with that fan base in Columbia. From what I've heard, they don't like them much either. But I can't tell you that one. I don't have enough of experience. But there's a definite hatred in that Manhattan area for the other school.
So you've been in Fog Allen Fieldhouse for a game with the Kansas Jayhawks. Tell someone who has never been to Fog Allen Fieldhouse what that experience is like, because you talk about the experience at K-State being unique. It is unique at Kansas.
Yeah, another. If you're not there working in the blue and the red, there's a good chance you're probably leaving that game with a headache, because I think I did 5 straight years, just needed aspirin as soon as the game's over. It is so loud in there. And they are another incredibly passionate fan base. And I don't know if it has something to do with the way the building is designed, but it takes it, getting loud to a whole nother level in that building. It makes it really tough to operate, to run offense, especially that first half when you guys are when we're on the opposite side and trying to communicate with your guys. It's virtually impossible.
So the question I've always had, and no one's been able to answer it, maybe you can't because you're Kansas State, but why do they call it KU when it is the University of Kansas? It is not Kansas University. It is the University of Kansas. They've got a huge sign when you enter campus, welcome to the University of Kansas. Shouldn't it be UK? I know Kentucky's UK.
Well,
why is it KU?
That's what I've heard. I don't know the whole story on that. I just heard that, there was Kentucky was, dominant at that time, and they were UK. They didn't want any, they had to go with something different. That's all I've heard.
Okay.
I don't know the truth of that, but that's what I've heard.
Well, at Missouri, they call it MU, and it's not Missouri University. It's the University of Missouri. So I didn't know if you have an answer to that. So how about what you guys have accomplished so far this year? And I say have accomplished because I know you guys don't feel like you're done.
Yeah, no, it's been a roller coaster year, ups and downs, and I'm incredibly proud, to get to 9 wins in year one. You might have to fact check me on that, but from what I've understand, they've only got to 9 wins like 3 times the last 15 years to come out of the gates and put a good year together in year one as kind of a foundation of what we have moving forward. We're just incredibly, incredibly happy and proud and excited to be here and see what the future holds.
All right, your thoughts about Morehead State on Wednesday?
They're a tough team, man. I like the makeup of their roster. They all complement each other well. They got a really good big guy inside that demands attention. And then, everybody around at the perimeter, 1 through 4, can play a little bit. I wouldn't say there's one guy that, around the perimeter that you have to absolutely key in on because all 4 of those guys are dangerous. And, what they've been successful because they really guard, they really rebound, and those are 2 really important things that often don't get talked about enough, but they defend, they rebound with the best of them in the league, and they play together, which makes them a tough out.
And it's going to be fun to be over at Evansville. You know what kind of facility they've got over there. It is a top-notch facility, 9:30 tip-off on Wednesday. Coach, we will see you in Evansville. Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you for having me, Eric.
All right, that's Coach Dustin Yoder back for a final word with Coach Brad Korn. After this, the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings Etc. on SEMO ESPN.
.com.
Final segment here on the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings Etc. in Cape Girardeau. We'll be at the Wings in Jackson next week, so we hope that you can join us for that. And don't forget, we're going to be talking Red Hawks football. Coach Took is going to be joining in on the conversation. What a big win for the Red Hawk football team, 47-7. They absolutely dismantled Eastern Illinois. And we want to pass this along to you. If you're thinking about the football game Sunday at home against Murray State, they do have social distancing guidelines, so there is a capacity at Houck Stadium. For this Sunday's game versus Murray State, there are only a couple of hundred tickets remaining available for the public. If you have been someone who has walked up to the ticket booth on game day to get a ticket, that will not work. Walk-up ticket sales on game day will not be available this year, of course, because of COVID. So you need to purchase your tickets online in advance at GoSoutheast.com/tickets. That's GoSoutheast.com/tickets. Are you a football guy, Coach?
I am. I mean, Obviously going to support all our teams. I've gotten to know Coach Took over the years. We actually crossed paths, obviously, at SIU, and just talking with him and being around the other coaches, too, sharing an office with Coach P, Coach Andy, Coach Mark. Gymnastics had a good weekend. I mean, a lot of winning going on right now in our programs, and it's good to see. And I think hopefully success always breeds success. And, you talk about the success of the women's program and our other championships in soccer and, softball. You just want to continue that on and be around that. That's the beautiful thing about sports and basketball and coaching is you always can learn. There's nothing that you can't learn from somebody. And, I can learn from Coach Julie in volleyball, and you can learn from how Coach Took handles this or Coach P handles it. So you always want to be around winners, and that's what's been going on around here, and that's what makes it exciting, and I think that's what makes the future of our program and our university bright.
All right, they always say it's tough to beat a good team 3 times. I don't know why that's a saying, but it is a saying. In sports, it's tough to beat a good team 3 times. You've proven that you're a good team, and you're peaking at the right time. You've won 4 or 5. And I've got to believe that, no coach would not like to be peaking at this time of year. If you peak in early February,
right.
Late January, this is when you want to be peaking, and you are. What do you have to do to beat Morehead State on Wednesday?
We cannot allow their defensive intensity, their shutdown mentality as far as shutting our wings down and not letting us get into any type of offense. It's going to be a struggle anyway because they're a good defensive team, but we can't let that take us out of what we're trying to do. And what I mean by that is now we can't just all of a sudden go play one-on-one basketball and think that we're going to make 6-point shots every time down the floor and have, we can't play under that type of a stress. They're going to create enough stress with the way that they play and the aggressiveness that they play on defense. We just can't allow that to become too much for us to overcome. And so playing smart, taking care of the basketball. Obviously, we have to match them on the boards. So that'll be a big key.
Does this affect anything but 9:30 at night? I mean, you haven't played any games at 9:30 at night. I mean, that's going to be different. I mean, do you worry about something like that?
I do a little bit just because it is not only that, there's a certain protocols in place for us too, and we're not really going to be leaving the hotel much. So not only is it 9:30, typically on the road, you go do your shoot around and you can kill time other places, but we're going to be on essentially a little bit of a bubble type lockdown. So I'm a little bit worried about just, we're going to have a ballroom, we'll be able to do walkthrough, but it's just how do you occupy their time that much until you can get them to the game. So I'm a little bit worried about that, but I think we'll have some things. We'll be creative with how we do things. Because it's unusual to be playing that late, but then also again with all the other protocols and things in place, it's even going to be that much more of a longer day. It's already a long day, but now it's going to be even longer.
Is it a slight advantage for you that you've already played there? They've been inside the Ford Center. They played the University of Evansville. You know the lay of the land a little bit. You have a game under your belt in that building.
I think, to me, that was the whole point of taking that game when we did this year. We talked about that way back, and that's why we did the game. Obviously, it's a good game for us travel-wise and everything else, and to play at Missouri Valley Conference School. So for those reasons, it was good. But this was the real reason, for us to always have that, to have that vision, that mentality to get back to Evansville, and we've done that now. And so that paid dividends for us, although we could have, should have won the game at there. I feel now when we walk in there, again, that was the whole point. We hadn't been in there before. It's not like we were there last year. So it was like we've now been and seen and felt that building. And so I hope it pays off for us. I think our guys have that that understanding of that and why we did that. And so I hope it gives them a little bit more of that. If you don't see your first shot go in, that you're not in a panic or you feel like do anything else. You can settle down and be a little bit easier when things don't go your way.
Yeah, fans around here are used to some games starting after 9 o'clock. When the Cardinals are on the West Coast, the Blues are playing on the West Coast tonight. It's going to be a late start time, so that's the way we'll look at it. 9:30 Wednesday in Evansville. Coach, best of luck. We will see you over there at the Ford Center, and hopefully we're talking about a championship this weekend.
That's right. I appreciate it, Eric. Thank you.
All right, that's Coach Brad Korn. Thanks to Coach Dustin Yoder a little earlier. We're going to get you back into ESPN radio programming, and for a final time, we say so long.